I found condoms in my boyfriend's bag. Right before his trip to Europe, after he joked about cheating. His excuse? They're for a friend. But he's cheated before, and now I'm questioning everything. I remember this moment so vividly. It completely threw me off balance. My boyfriend was packing for his trip to Europe, and we were going through his things together. He was showing me what was in his cosmetic case when he jokingly blurted out, "Don't look at the condoms in there." He immediately followed up with a laugh and said, "Just kidding, I didn't bring any condoms." I brushed it off as a weird joke, but it lingered in the back of my mind. Later, he realized he couldn't find his AirPods and went down to his car to check if they were there. While he was gone, I decided to help by searching through his carry-on bag. That's when I found them, his AirPods, right next to 2 Trojan condoms. My stomach dropped. When he came back upstairs, I held up the condoms and asked, "What's this about?" After all, he specifically said he didn't pack any. His response? "Oh, I brought them just in case. For a friend." For a friend? That made no sense, and it felt like he was trying to hide something. I brought up his earlier joke, pointing out how suspicious it made everything seem. His next explanation made it worse. Even if I wanted to cheat, my friends wouldn't let me. Wait, what? That wasn't the point. I don't care about his friends acting as babysitters. I care that he wouldn't even want to cheat in the first place. Here's the thing. I wouldn't normally jump to conclusions, but this situation wasn't happening in a vacuum. My boyfriend has a history of cheating. He told me early on that he cheated on every girlfriend before me, but he always reassured me I was different. He insisted he would never cheat on me, and for the most part, I believed him. He's usually so open with me, and I figured if he did something shady, I'd find out from him, or from one of his friends. But now this? And to top it off, he mentioned weeks ago that he wanted to visit some risque clubs in Europe. He described them as places where drugs and things happen. I didn't think much of it at the time, but now the thought made me uneasy. I left his house to collect my thoughts. As I was driving away, he texted me, "I'm sorry everything unfolded the way it did. I should have been more transparent with you. I shouldn't have packed those, because if someone really needs them, they can get their own. It's not my problem, it's theirs. I will make sure moving forward that you can continue to not worry about my past. I love you, and I'll see you soon." I reread the message several times. I wanted to believe him, but my gut wouldn't stop screaming at me. What if this wasn't just about condoms? What if this was the first sign of something worse? I felt trapped between wanting to trust him and the nagging voice in my head telling me to walk away. Now I'm sitting here, debating whether I should still drive him to the airport. I don't want to be the naive girlfriend doing him a favor, only to have him betray me the moment he lands. Am I overreacting, or is my gut telling me something I need to pay attention to? Update 1. Hey everyone, thanks for all your input on my original post. I wanted to give you an update because, honestly, this situation has been eating away at me. I wish I could say it's all resolved, but things are complicated. So here's what happened after I found the condoms in his bag. As I mentioned, I left his house to clear my head, and he texted me that long message apologizing and saying he shouldn't have packed them. He claimed they weren't for him, but for a friend, and promised he'd be more transparent going forward. It felt half-hearted, and it didn't really address my concerns, but I told myself, maybe I'm overthinking this. When it was time to drive him to the airport, I was still conflicted. Part of me wanted to just refuse and leave him to figure it out on his own, but I didn't want to make a rash decision in the heat of the moment. So I went. The car ride was awkward. I tried to ask him more questions to get clarity, but he mostly stuck to what he'd already told me. "I shouldn't have packed them. I get why you're upset, but it's not what you think." I was just trying to be prepared for someone else, not for me. I've been completely honest with you about my past, and I'd never do anything to hurt you. When I pressed him about why he'd even joke about condoms earlier if he knew he had them in his bag, he said something like, "I wasn't thinking. It was just a dumb joke." I told him straight up that it didn't add up. The joke, the history of cheating, the clubs he wanted to visit, it all painted a picture that didn't sit right with me. He looked genuinely frustrated and said, "You're punishing me for being honest about my past. I've done everything I can to prove I'm not that guy anymore. I didn't know how to respond to that. He did have a point. He's been upfront about his cheating history, and I've never caught him lying before. But this situation still didn't feel right. When we got to the airport, I helped him unload his bags, and as we said goodbye, he hugged me and said, "I love you, and I'll call you as soon as I land. Please don't overthink this, okay?" I nodded, but as soon as he walked into the terminal, I felt this sinking feeling. Now that he's in Europe, communication has been sporadic because of the time difference and his busy schedule. He's been sending me photos of the sights and his meals, and he FaceTimed me a couple of times. He's acting like everything is fine, but I still have that nagging voice in my head. To make matters worse, I've been overanalyzing every little thing he says. For example, during one of our calls, he casually mentioned that he and his friends were planning to check out some nightlife. When I asked if that included the risque clubs he talked about before, he hesitated and said, "We'll see, but don't worry, babe. I won't do anything to make you uncomfortable." That hesitation felt like a red flag. Why not just say, "No, I won't go"? At the same time, I'm questioning whether I'm being unfair. He hasn't technically done anything wrong, as far as I know, and he's trying to keep me updated. But his past and the condoms are a dark cloud hanging over everything. I talked to one of my close friends about it, and she pointed out something that really stuck with me. She said, "You're focusing so much on whether or not he's cheating that you're ignoring how this situation is making you feel. Do you trust him? Do you feel secure in this relationship?" And the truth is, I don't know. There's a part of me that still loves him and wants to believe he's changed. He's been nothing but honest about his flaws and his past, and I respect that. But there's another part of me that can't shake the feeling that I'm being naive. His history of cheating, the condoms, the just-in-case excuse, the risque clubs, it's all too much. I've been replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out if I'm being paranoid or if my gut is onto something. Maybe I'll never have concrete proof of anything, but is that what I want? To always wonder? I'm considering having a serious conversation with him when he gets back, laying everything out and asking for some kind of reassurance. But even then, how do I know it's not just words? For now, I'm trying to focus on myself while he's away. I've been journaling my thoughts and leaning on friends for support, but it's hard. I keep going back and forth between thinking I'm overreacting and convincing myself this is the beginning of the end. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Am I being unreasonable to let his past influence how I feel now? Or does the combination of everything justify my doubts? I don't want to ruin something good because of my own insecurities, but I also don't want to ignore red flags. Thanks for sticking with me through all this. I'll update again once he's back from his trip. Fingers crossed that I'm overthinking this and not setting myself up for heartbreak. Update 2. Hey everyone, I'm back with an update. Thanks so much for all the advice and support on my last post. It really helped me organize my thoughts. A lot has happened since then, and I'm still trying to process it all. So, my boyfriend got back from his Europe trip about a week ago. Leading up to his return, I decided I needed to have a serious, no BS conversation with him. No dancing around the issue, no letting him redirect or deflect. I was determined to get answers and figure out if this relationship is something I can trust, or if I'm just wasting my time. When he came back, we hugged and kissed like normal, but I could tell he sensed something was off. He asked if I was okay, and I told him we needed to talk. We sat down, and I laid everything out. The condoms in his bag, his history of cheating, the just-in-case excuse, the joke he made before I found them, his hesitation about visiting the risque clubs. I told him that all of these things together made me feel like I couldn't trust him, and that I didn't want to stay in a relationship where I was constantly second-guessing his words and actions. He was quiet for a moment. Then he started apologizing again. He said the condoms were a dumb decision, and he understood why I was upset. But then he said something that caught me off guard. "I didn't tell you this before because I didn't want to stress you out, but the condoms weren't for a friend. They were for me. Not because I planned to cheat, but because I know my history, and I didn't trust myself completely." My brain froze for a second. Like, what? I asked him to explain, and he said that while he didn't plan to do anything, he brought them as a safety net in case he got tempted. He claimed he didn't want to put himself in a situation where something could happen without protection. At that point, I was furious. I told him that this was even worse than I thought because now it wasn't just a case of, oh, they're for a friend. He admitted to doubting his own ability to stay faithful. He tried to backpedal, saying that the condoms weren't about cheating, but about being cautious and responsible. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I asked him if he ever actually used them on the trip. He swore up and down that he didn't and that he never even opened the pack. I asked him about the clubs, and he admitted he went to one but only stayed for a little while because it wasn't his scene. He said he felt guilty the whole time and left early. At that point, I was just numb. I told him that the fact he even thought to bring condoms, just in case, was a huge breach of trust. I said that if he's going to be in a relationship with me, he needs to fully commit to being faithful. Not halfway, not with a backup plan. He got defensive and said, "You don't understand how hard it is to change when you've been a certain way your whole life." That sentence broke me. I realized I'd been holding on to this idea that I could be the one to fix him, that I was somehow special enough to make him change. But hearing him admit that he still struggles with basic loyalty, it made me see that this isn't just about me or our relationship. It's about who he is as a person. I told him I needed space to think things over, and I left. Since then, I've been staying with a friend and trying to figure out what to do. On one hand, I love him, and I know he's trying to be better. But on the other hand, do I really want to be in a relationship where I have to worry about my partner not trusting himself to stay faithful? I keep replaying his words in my head. The whole "I didn't trust myself" excuse feels like a red flag I can't ignore. If he can't trust himself, how am I supposed to trust him? He's been texting me every day, apologizing and begging me to come back. He says he's willing to go to therapy to work on his issues and prove to me that he's serious about changing. Part of me thinks maybe I should give him a chance. After all, nobody's perfect, and he is being honest about his flaws. But another part of me wonders if I'm just delaying the inevitable heartbreak. I'm at a crossroads, and I honestly don't know what to do. Do I stay and try to work things out, knowing that it'll take a lot of effort and emotional energy? Or do I walk away now and save myself the stress of constantly wondering if he's being faithful? If you've been in a similar situation, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Right now, I'm feeling so lost and unsure of what the right choice is. Thanks again for reading and for all your support. It really means a lot. Update 3. Hey everyone, this will be my last update. I can't thank you enough for all the advice, tough love, and support you've given me throughout this whole mess. It's been an emotional roller coaster, but I've finally made a decision about my relationship. After spending a lot of time reflecting, talking to friends, and honestly just sitting with my feelings, I realized something. I deserve better than this. The truth is, I've been holding on to the potential of who my boyfriend could be instead of accepting who he is right now. I've been making excuses for him, telling myself he's trying, or that I need to give him more time to change. But how long do I wait? How many times do I forgive questionable behavior before it becomes a pattern I can't ignore? The turning point came when I thought about the future. Could I see myself constantly questioning his loyalty, especially whenever he travels or goes out with friends? Could I handle being the girlfriend who always has a knot in her stomach, wondering if I'm being lied to? The answer was no. So I told him it was over. When I went to his place to talk, I could tell he knew what was coming. He started apologizing again before I even said anything. He said he'd do whatever it took to prove himself, that he'd go to therapy, cut off toxic friends, and never put me in a situation like this again. For a split second, I almost wavered. I could see how much he wanted to fix things, and I did love him. But then I remembered something my friend said to me. Love isn't enough if there's no trust. And in that moment, I realized I couldn't trust him. Not fully. Not the way I need to in a healthy relationship. I told him exactly how I felt. I said I appreciated his honesty about his past, but his actions, like bringing those condoms just in case, showed that he hasn't really changed. I told him I need someone who's all in, not someone who's hedging their bets or preparing for temptation. He started crying, which caught me off guard because I'd never seen him so emotional before. He said he didn't know why he sabotaged the relationship when he really did love me. He asked if we could take a break instead of fully breaking up, but I told him I didn't want to drag this out. It wouldn't be fair to either of us. Walking away was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Even now, Part of me wonders if I made the right choice. But deep down, I know I did. Since the breakup, I've been focusing on myself, journaling, going out with friends, and even starting therapy. It's been tough, but I feel lighter, like a weight I didn't even realize I was carrying has been lifted. I'm learning that love isn't just about feelings. It's about respect, trust, and partnership. To anyone reading this who's in a similar situation, let me just say this. Listen to your gut. Don't settle for a relationship that makes you feel uncertain or insecure. You deserve someone who makes you feel safe and valued, not someone who makes you question their intentions. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm choosing myself. And honestly, that feels pretty damn good. Thank you all again for being here for me through this. It means more than you'll ever know.